There's this collection of letters by C.S. Lewis. I think there's multiple volumes. It's a series of books. And in it, he's writing to a friend about the dangers of pornography and masturbation. And there's a quote in there that when I read it for the first time, I was just like, man, that's it. For 30 years now, I have watched mostly men destroy their potential, destroy their relationships, and really bend their brain in a terrible way through the consistent use of pornography and masturbation as a coping mechanism. And here's what Lewis said. For me, the real evil of masturbation would be that it takes an appetite which in lawful use leads the individual out of himself to complete and correct his own personality in that of another, and finally in children and even grandchildren, and turns it back. It sends the man back into the prison of himself, there to keep a harem of imaginary brides. And this harem, once admitted, works against his ever getting out and really uniting with a real woman. For the harem is always accessible, always subservient, calls for no sacrifices or adjustments, and can be endowed with erotic and psychological attractions which no real woman could rival. Among these shadowy brides, he is always adored, always the perfect lover. No demand is made on his unselfishness. No mortification is ever imposed on his vanity. In the end, they become merely the medium through which he increasingly adores himself. Lewis nails the trap of pornography and masturbation. It bends us inward, where the gift of sex is meant to pull us out of ourselves into another. This bends us back into ourselves, which the church fathers would say is the essence of sin itself. That sin bends us inward where God moves us outward. In fact, whether you look at Lewis's four loves or you go back and you look at kind of the Hebrew meanings for words of love, sexual love is always built around the confines of relational commitment and knowledge. So that in the Bible, when the Bible's talking about sex, and I think we should pay attention because sex is God's idea. The pleasure of sex, the procreation of sex, the formation of sex is not something that Satan snuck in and kind of twisted creation. No, this is a really good gift from God, and yet he knows it can be dangerous, that it can do a lot of damage to our souls, to our brains, and to our bodies. And so he puts these parameters around them. And so if you want to read a ton about this, you can go and read C.S. Lewis's The Four Loves. I wrote a little bit about this in my book, Mingling of Souls, where I took the Hebrew root words, working through Song of Solomon or Song of Songs, where the Bible tends to build erotic love or sexual love like this. In Song of Solomon, we read about the first kind of love being raya, which is a love of friendship. We get to know one another. I'm learning about you. You're learning about me. We're moving towards one another. And once raya is there, you can move to what's next, which would be ahava, or a love of the will. And the way I've historically taught this is that this is that moment. The ahava love is that moment where you kind of, let's talk about it. You see the crazy in the other person. There's no longer rose-colored glasses. You see their weaknesses. You see they're crazy, and you make the decision, I'm not going anywhere. I had a pastor counsel me before Lauren and I got married. Lauren and I were fighting frequently, and I asked this pastor about that, whether this was a red flag, and he said to me, you're going to fight with someone for the rest of your life. Do you want that to be Lauren? And I was like, yes, if I'm going to fight with somebody for the rest of my life, I want it to be Lauren. That's ahava. Like I could see, oh man, we're struggling here. We've got an issue here. I don't really like that that's her bent, and she doesn't really like that this is my bent. So it was a red flag, but not a red flag that killed the relationship. It was that moment of ahava. It was a love of the will. I am choosing Lauren as my forever wife. And then if you have those two pieces there, if you've got deep friendship and you've got love of the will, like these are those verses in Song of Solomon, like many rivers could not wash away ahava, right? That's how strong it is. It's not going anywhere. It's that I've seen you're crazy and I'm here for it. And then when those two pieces are in place, then we can get to the Hebrew dode, which means mingling of souls, because that's the gift of sex. It's not merely a physical exchange, as this current moment in human history thinks. No, no, no. There's a mingling of souls that occurs, but that depth and intimacy, which is what we're so hungry for, can only be born, is only gifted to those who have a good friendship in covenant love, where now I can experience the intimacy that sex is meant to bring, not just a physical release, but intimacy, connection, belonging, that I'm not having sex with a body. I'm making love to a woman who I know. I know her strengths. I know her weaknesses. And I have committed to serving her, loving her, protecting her, providing for her. She has committed to following me, submitting to me. And we kind of partner in gospel ministry together, and that becomes the boundaries by which sex grows in intimacy and connection, and doesn't just become like porn and masturbation, a harem of my own imagination where I'm always adored, I'm always the best lover, it's not self-exalting. God's design for sex, and what Lewis is pointing at, is it leads me out of myself to care deeply for, to nurture, to wash with the water of the word this woman that God has gifted to me for life. And so, man, if you are struggling in this area, and the data says a lot of people are, I would encourage you to make war against chronic masturbation and pornography use. I would ask you to make war against limited. I would ask you to make war against even images on Instagram or anything that starts to move your heart and mind away from the one that God has given you, or the one that He may give you one day. Just strive for purity. And so one of the major sponsors for my long form podcast called The Overcomers has been covenantized for years, because I think that there's so many ways this can come at you today, that we have to be active in our desire to keep our eyes and mind and heart pure and holy before the Lord. Brothers, let me speak directly to you. I don't think this is a fight you can win on your own. I think you need to loop in your guys. You need to loop in people that can hold you accountable, and you need to fight the good fight of faith to keep your mind and heart pure in a day that is very sensual and will woo you into this imaginary harem. It will rob you of your ability to love deeply and purely like God calls you. It will cost you the joy of deep intimacy with your spouse. And so I would ask you to just go to war against that, because the stakes are high. They're not small. It's not no big deal just because it's so pervasive in our culture. It is destroying men and destroying marriages. And even more and more, women are being pulled into this nonsense. God calls us to be holy people. This is one of those places where Christians in this moment can shine like the stars in a wicked and depraved generation. God bless you. Make war. I do believe the Holy Spirit will empower you to walk in victory.